People who lost their jobs by going off on a customer. What is your story? Story 1. Worked at a GameStop as a GA, game advisor. Some guy came in and had a figurative load of games, over 100 to trade, all with games and cases mismatched. It took about 45 minutes to process his ticket when I told him that the total was low because GameStop and also they were all old, scratched-up games. This man then tried to negotiate with me, to which I kept on telling him that I can't change the price, which only made him angrier and louder. Eventually, he yelled, "Listen, you stupid N-word. I need at least $300 for all this stuff and you're gonna give it to me." First of all, I don't even have the ability to change the price at all. Second of all, my coworker proceeded to put all of his games in a bag, walk outside and toss them into the parking lot, and told the guy to take his racist cousin freaking somewhere else and to screw off. The store manager came out of the back room and fired him dead on the spot. The guy stormed out, and a second after he left, my manager said, "Jesus, what was his freaking problem?" Alright, get back to work. My coworker didn't get fired, it was just theatrics for the racist cunt. I felt like an idiot for just standing there, but it was taking everything I had to not hop over the counter and hit the guy. Love the theatrics tricks. A good manager knows how to use it. Story 2. I used to work for a popular pub chain here in the UK called Wetherspoons. I had been there for about 3 years and I had been promoted to the team leader. I wasn't really too bothered about the job as a future because it was only money to keep me through university, but money's money. Anyway, one day we get a customer in, an American, who had just stepped foot off the plane, and all of his preconceptions are off. For those not familiar with spoons, here's a few things. They don't do table service. You have to order food at the bar and pay before you get it. They'll bring it to the table and clear it away afterward, but that's about it. Food is known for being cheap and cheerful. Most of it is microwaved, bar the things that cannot be cooked in a microwave, like steak for example. And it's not high-quality gourmet dining and they don't pretend it is. The customer is always right ethos does not exist here. They'll be polite to a point, but if you take the piss, you won't get good service or any at all. I've rejected more people than I can remember. It's primarily a drinking establishment. Most people don't go to eat, and most of the venues don't have any dedicated food-only areas. Anyway, he comes in, has a seat, and waits for the waiter, who obviously doesn't come. Keep in mind that it's not unusual for people to come and sit and wait for their friends or whatnot. He comes up, storming up to the bar and claiming that he's been waiting for a goddamn half hour. One of the bar staff, very confused, asks him, "What have you been waiting for?" With 100% sincerity, the man seemed to think that the bar staff was being sarcastic and rude. He started shouting. As the team leader, I stepped in and did the diplomatic, "Hey, what's going on? Oh, I'm very sorry, sir. Here, let me take your order, blah blah blah." He orders a steak. I can't remember what kind, but it was a steak. Now, remember earlier when I said it wasn't gourmet food? Well, that extends to the steak. They offer 5 levels of cooking, but it's really basically rare, medium, or burnt. He wanted his blue, which we don't do for unknown reasons. It comes out as medium. He's not happy, and he brings his plate up to the bar and slams it down on the counter, red-faced and furious. I'm paraphrasing a bit here, as it was a few years ago now, but the general gist of it went like this. Me, "Excuse me, sir, can I help you?" Him, "You better hope you can, because I'm about to call your manager in, buddy." Me, "Well, hopefully I can. What is it I can help you with?" Him, This steak burned." Me, "I'm very sorry, I'll order a replacement and give you a full refund, sir. Standard op when dealing with food complaints of quality." Him, "Not good enough. I don't want another piece of crap like that, you hear me? Give me my goddamn frickin' money." Me, "Excuse me, sir, there is no need to be rude. I offered you a refund and I'm happy to do that for you, but you will not swear at me, sir." Him, "I'll swear all I want. That trash you served me is not a goddamn steak, and I want a full refund plus gratuity or you can kiss your job goodbye." Me, "That is a steak presented, sir. I'm sorry if it's not to your liking, but I have offered the resolution, so allow me to go and get your money." Him, "Hurry up about it, and that was no damn steak." Me, "Then do you mind if I ask what you think it is, because it certainly wasn't a chicken." I was pissed off at this point and the guy was a dick. Him, "Give me my goddamn money and get your freaking manager, you little kid! Now! Now!" At this point, he's reaching across the bar and pointing at me. I don't like people shouting at me and I hate people pointing at me. Me, "Actually, no, I won't get my manager. And I don't have to offer a refund," which is actually true. He can go to HQ and get it directly, but it's a myth to say the staff was to give it then and there. I was happy to give you one, but you've pissed me off now. Now go and take your coat and get the hell out. Him, you little kid, I'll call the cops. Me, do it, then they can take you out for me. This goes back and forth for a little while, gathering quite a bit of attention from the other clientele. The manager walks in and the man shouts at him and the manager calms him down. The man demands I be fired. I get pulled into disciplinary, manager breaks the rule, and not an unwritten one, a legitimate company-mandated rule, that says managers take our side. He says that he has to let me go. I was fired, appealed, and owned him and that kid so hard in the tribunal. I got paid for the next 4 months that I've been stuck without a job, plus a little extra for the hassle. My record of being sacked struck off my record and offered my job back, which I rejected. Story 3. Disneyland. I worked in the ticket booths. If you're an annual pass holder and you're on a monthly contract, Disney takes automatic payments from your credit card. If your card expires or otherwise has to be changed and you don't call to put a new card on the file, the auto payments stop and your pass freezes. No big deal, Disney doesn't hit you with fees or penalties. You can simply call and come to the booth and we'll handle it right then and there. Zippity-doo-dah and in you go. One day, I get a middle-aged couple whose passes froze. The man was upset and ready to talk about it. A common question from guests is, don't you need to send out late notices? No, Disney doesn't because they're not practical, and again, there's no penalties anyway. Just come and see us and we'll straighten you out. The man says to me in a disgusted tone, "You don't send out notices when a pass freezes? How does that work?" I said, well, you receive our credit card statement and you see that a recurring charge is not present on it, and you can expect the service related to the recurring charge to be interrupted and that it must be related to your card having been replaced recently. The wife smiled and the man's face reddened. He leaned in and barked, "Get your supervisor. I want to talk to somebody smart." To my shame, I said, "No, would you like someone smart enough to stay aware of their credit card use, or merely smart enough to read the contracts that they sign?" My booth lead happened to come over as soon as she heard the word supervisor, so she was standing behind me when I said the emotional thing. It isn't how I wanted to go out, I was 5 days away from leaving for a new job anyway, but I looked at it as a vicariously cathartic mic drop goodbye to my fellow cast members. For them, it was a thrill. Story 4. I was lucky I didn't lose my job for this one. I worked at a furniture store as a sales associate. One day, a husband and wife came in wanting to furnish their son with an apartment that's going to college. They find all the furniture pieces that they want and I go to check stock on multiple items. Everything is in except for the tabletop of the dining room set that they wanted. I go back and tell the couple. The husband throws an absolute hissy fit saying that he can't believe that we don't keep our products stocked. Keep in mind that we are a huge furniture store. I calmly explained to him that we can't possibly keep all of our products in stock at all times, and since the dining room table he wanted was a very popular set, due to the fact that it was $199.99, it tended to go out of stock rather quickly, so we would have to wait for that vendor to start up the tabletop again, which was in about 2 weeks. I even tried to show them another tabletop that was in stock that was very similar to the one they picked out, and they would not have it. He started telling me that I was incompetent and how dare I insult him. Insult him how? I have no idea. He started increasing his volume and is now full out screaming at me about 10 inches away from my face. My manager walks in from around the corner and looks at me questioningly like the "do you got this" face. I nodded at him that I had it, but he continued to stand within earshot. I then looked back at the customer and said in a nonchalant tone, "I'm not going to help you. In fact, no one here is going to help you. Now please get out of my store." The customer looks at me bewildered in a full-set rage and demands to speak with my manager. Since my manager is standing right around the corner, he had heard everything. He goes to the customer and says, "Well, you heard the lady. I miss working there." Story 5. I used to cut hair. I was cutting a lady's hair when the child of the lady started running around the shop. I told the child several times to go sit with her mother and asked her mother to please keep her child seated next to her. Well, in the middle of cutting around my client's ear, the child ran into my work area, ran into me, and almost caused me to cut my client. I looked at the child and firmly said, "You need to sit down with your mother now." Well, her mother did not like that and came running back to me and yelled, "Don't tell my child what to do. I am her parent." I responded with, "Then act like it." She glared at me and grabbed her child, and stormed out and tried to fire me for it. But luckily, there were enough other clients and stylists that came to my defense about the danger of the situation, and I only got a write-up. Story 6. Many years ago, I worked at a home improvement store called Menards. I was a cart pusher, which was nice since I was outside all the time. Anyway, we gathered about 25 to 30 shopping carts together and pushed them all up to the entrance where they're all stored inside. Now to get them there, we do have to cross the main drive of the parking lot in front of the store. We always stop and let customers drive by, so as I push the carts up, I stop because I see a guy in a pretty nice SUV. He's actually stopped in front of the entrance and maybe he's dropping someone off that I don't know. So I'm waiting to see if he drives off and then he looks at me and waves me across. Looks like he wanted to finish a call that he had gotten or something, so I wave back and start pushing the carts across. I'm on the other side when someone clips me across my shoulder blades and it stung somewhat and pushed me forward. And at the same time, I heard glass shatter. I turned around and the guy in the SUV clipped me with a side view mirror. It had swung closed and shattered the mirror in the door, and I'm just standing there wide-eyed. 2 seconds later, this guy gets out of his car swearing up a storm at me and how I'm a low-life piece of crap and how I'm going to pay for a new window and I'm not going to get anywhere in life because I broke his window. No, I'm the type of guy who, if I was the reason, I'll take the blame and fix the problem. But this guy hit me. I blew up on him for 5 minutes before a manager finally had the guts to come over and pull me away. I didn't have to pay for a new window as it was all on video, but I lost my job because we're not supposed to yell and cuss at customers. Story 7. I used to work at a pizza place in a small town when I was a teenager. One night I took a phone order from some idiotic woman. It went like this. Me. Thank you for calling Pizza Place. May I take your order? Yes, I'd like a large pizza, half pepperoni, half sausage, and half black olives. Me. Okay, did you want all the toppings combined or separate? Idiotic woman. No, I want half pepperoni, half sausage, and half black olives. Me. Okay, so you want 1/3 pepperoni, 1/3 sausage, and 1/3 black olives? Idiotic woman. No, I want half pepperoni, half sausage, and half black olives. Me. I understand the toppings that you want, but I'm not understanding how you want us to put the toppings on your pizza. Do you want them all separated by thirds or combined together? Or do you mean put half of the amount that we usually put on? Idiotic woman. What's so hard to understand? I want half pepperoni, half sausage, and half black olives. Me. Lady, there are only 2 halves to a pizza. Idiotic woman. I want to speak to your manager. I got fired on the spot. It was easier for the manager to just hire another person than it was to lose a customer in a small town. Oh, and the lady wanted the toppings divided into thirds. She told the manager the same thing and he just went with her math. The witch also got it for free. Story 8. Tried to reason with a Daily Mail journalist, got fired for her stupidity. Yay for logic. I was a stockroom assistant at a well-known fashion chain in the UK and US. Didn't go off on a customer, but bloody hell I wish I did now. Happened to be behind tills, changing hangers and boxes when a customer exploded at the trainee cashier, demanding to know where her order was. She's screaming her head off at how it's unacceptable that I paid extra, and how she made a specific detour to collect her package. She had ordered a jacket in another branch and had paid for next-day delivery at the store I worked in. Customers aren't supposed to come and collect their orders until they get an email saying that their order was ready to collect. The poor cashier started last week and is basically cowering for dear life. I take over and ask them to see her email, which she explains she doesn't need because she paid extra, so her package must be here. After 10 minutes of me trying to explain why her package isn't ready to collect and her trying to challenge Krakatoa, she stormed off shouting that she'll be having words with the guy who owns our company. I hand it back to the cashier and carry on with my day. The next day, I'm prepping our delivery and I get called in for a meeting with the store manager. I'm told that I'm being let go for gross misconduct, specifically being unhelpful and challenging to customers. Turns out the customer was a journalist for the Daily Mail and she called our head of the company, who she did indeed know personally, and got me fired specifically. Story 9. I didn't lose my job, but I think most people would have blown up at this guy. Or cried. Fortunately, I'm extremely calm and collected. And tough from being bullied so much in middle school probably. Anyway, I worked at this large retail store and was stocking a shelf when an old, like 80-plus man came up to me. I assumed that he was going to ask me where something was like every other customer. Instead, he started going off on me, just insult after insult, telling me that I'm disgusting and all these things like that, just because I have tattoos. Instead of blowing up at him, I thanked him for the compliments, sugar dripping from my voice. In my head, I was saying, "You'll be dead soon," but out loud, I just said something along the lines of, "I really love the color of your pants. Is that seafoam green polyester? I think the 1970s must have been so cool. Ooh, where did he even get those pants? A museum?" Well, apparently someone witnessed all this because about 10 minutes after the guy gave up, my manager came at me looking furious. I remember feeling a horrible sense of dread. He blew up, but not about how I handled it. He said that I should have called him immediately and he would have kicked that guy out of the store, and that I didn't deserve to be treated like that. What a great manager. Story 10. I didn't get fired, but I was written up and yelled at by management. It was the reason I quit a week later. I'm in my early 40s, and for fun, I took a part-time job at a Legoland Discovery Center. I love Legos and love kids. It was a blast most of the time. However, at Legoland, employees build their name tags out of Lego bricks and attach minifigs. Kids who can visit trade minifigs with the employees. The rule is that we have to trade because it's fun for the kids. Great! The only problem is that the center that I worked at didn't supply any good minifigures, so we just built our own from the Build-A-Fig buckets. I worked on the photo and entertainment departments, and I noticed that a lot of guests would bring in their extra minifigs looking to trade, but were disappointed by the selection. So I began to buy tons of mystery minifigures and had a large collection of my own at my home. Each weekend, I put a bunch in my pockets and put them on my name tag throughout the day so that I could trade. I liked having Lego Ninjago or Simpsons or whatever. I wanted the kids to leave happy about their trade and feel like they got something special. Most weeks I spent $75 or more on minifigs just for trading. On May 4th, I pulled out my personal Star Wars minifigs because I knew that there were going to be a lot of Star Wars fans that day. I had Vader and many stormtroopers, etc. This woman came in with a 3-year-old girl and insisted that I give her my stormtrooper. She didn't have anything to trade, but I smiled and gave it to her. Then the mom went and took a minifigures piece from the build tables and made her daughter trade with me for my Darth Vader. I traded but was irritated because I only trade one of my personal ones per kid. There were lots of employees to trade with. The mom just wanted her kid to have my nice ones. The lady goes on to another area and then in comes a group of likely Star Wars fans. One of the girls had a Ninjago minifigure in her hands that she had brought from my home. She was looking for someone to trade with and was headed over to my section. I put Admiral Akbar, a fairly rare one that you can only get from the X-Wing Build Fighter set, on my tag along with Leia, excited thinking that I'm going to make their day. In swoops, and the lady demands that I trade all of my figures to her kid who has 3 minifigure pieces. I politely refuse and suggest that she go and ask the employees of a couple feet away, since we had already previously traded twice already. She got very angry and began screaming at me because she had gone over around the center and no one else had anything good. My manager came over and made me give her all of my minifigs, even the ones I still had in my pockets. I was written up for refusing to trade and not caring about the guest experience. I was so pissed because I cared very much about the guest experience. Not the pushy parent experience, but the experience of kids who just love Legos. And that's why I spent so much of my own money to make sure that they left with something cool in their pockets. Okay, this one makes me angry. Screw that lady and screw your manager. Story 11. I didn't say this, but I saw it happen. Working at Burger King many years ago, I was working the drive-thru register, which was close enough to the front registers that I could hear conversations. One of my coworkers was taking an order from a lady who kept on asking how much her total was, and then canceling the food on it and changing her mind. I guess she was trying to keep under a certain dollar amount. Well, at the Burger King I worked at, any canceled food on an order needed a manager's password. Thanks to one creep who stole money by putting it in someone's order, telling them the total, and then canceling out the order. And pocketing the money. So the manager had come by about 3 or 4 times at this point. This was during dinner time, mind you, so there was a line of customers out the door waiting to order. Finally, my coworker pulled out a pad of paper and a calculator. He started writing this woman's order down and totaling it out by hand. The woman asked him why he was doing that. He told her, "When you make up your mind about what you want, then I'll put it into the register." This pissed off the lady, so she grabbed the notebook and tried to hit my coworker with it. He snatched it back from her and told her, "Get the hell out." My manager was only going to write him up for it since the manager agreed that the lady was absolutely deserving it, but my manager had to follow company policy. But he already had 2 write-ups on file, so she had to fire him. Story 12. It wasn't me, but I've already told about it. Some guy just passed his training for a call center, and a few days in, he answered the phone to a customer and they got into an argument. The argument goes on for nearly an hour, and when the customer hangs up, the guy called him back to continue the argument. The guy was in his late 50s and lost his job very quickly after. Story 13. Not me, but my mother. She was working at an upscale cocktail lounge in Arlington, Virginia, just out of the college. Fancy place, all DC businessmen. It was common for a large group of men to come in and get absolutely wasted. One night, a guy decided that after a few cocktails that it would be hilarious to untie the wrap skirt that was part of her uniform. Bad idea. My mother was furious and dumped an entire tray of martinis on his head. She was promptly fired, but she still thinks it was worth it. Story 14. Obligatory, it was my coworker, but I was like 5 feet away. We worked in the produce section of the Safeway. He had gotten in like 5 minutes prior and was obviously in a bad mood when a customer comes up and starts complaining about her fruit. He tries to do the normal talking points, but the lady is being a witch. Finally, he just loses it and yells, "Screw off, you stupid whore!" He throws his apron at her and leaves the store. Never heard from him again. That was also the day that I worked my first 16-hour shift. Story 15. Lost my position at a vet clinic. The story goes like this. A woman brought in her 5-year-old dog who had diarrhea for the past week and was untreated for it. She was tired of the dog messing around the house. So instead of having the dog treated for the condition, she decided that she would rather just have the dog put down. I proceeded to call her a dumb witch while explaining to her that the responsibilities that are involved when deciding to have a pet. I was fired and I never looked back. But you fulfilled your duty of keeping the animal alive, so you are the winner. Story 16. I have a speech impediment, and back when I worked at Starbucks, this young African-American kid would come in every day after school and order a caramel frap. Every time I told him that it would be $3.50, he would laugh uproariously and ask me to say it again. After a few weeks of this, he would start bringing in his buddies as well. Each one would order the same exact drink and then ask me to keep repeating the price for them again and again. After a few months, I broke down. You boys should know how much the drink is by now. My manager overheard and claimed that I was being racist by calling them you boys, even though they were all middle school age. Anyways, I still see the kids around town and they always shout at me, "How much are those caramel fraps again?" Story 17. My sister was the manager of a woman's clothing store. At the time, she was dealing with some personal issues regarding depression and anxiety, so she wasn't in the greatest state of mind to begin with. A customer came in with a pair of pants that had been ripped along the inner thigh seams, which were well past the return period and had clearly been worn/washed. The customer, who was a larger woman, went off on a sales associate, stating that she had only tried the pants on and that caused the seams to rip and she wanted a refund. She brought the associate to tears with her ranting and finally demanded the manager, my sister. Enter my sis, and the customer starts yelling at her too. Sis promptly tells the customer that her pants split because she was a freaking fat ass and she wouldn't get a freaking refund, and to take her fat ass out of the store and to never come back. Sis then went in the back, called her boss, and quit before she could be fired. Her boss was actually willing to let her stay, but she chose to leave anyway because she could get her depression issues under control that way. Took a solid year, but she's much happier and healthier now. Story 18. I didn't get fired, but I got a written up warning for this. I was working tech support for a web host. The customer chatted in, complaining of slowness, claiming that our servers were having issues. I do all sorts of steps and we determine that this ISP is having issues, standard tracers, etc. He doesn't believe me and he becomes obstinate. So I end the chat by saying, "You're wrong." About 10 minutes later, I get a new chat. I see the account name and the question. It was the same guy with the same question. Without letting him say anything, I wrote, "You're still wrong," and closed the chat. If I wasn't one of the better techs, I know I would have been fired.